Welcome to the Hot Pot Insights show. I'm Kunkit and I'm here to bring you the perspective and insights of extraordinary people in ordinary lives. A podcast for those who are looking to embark on a journey of discovery and growth. I'd like to introduce my friend and next guest who empowers time-strapped, career-oriented men to feel less guilty about choosing family over work through financial planning. He is someone who I admire, and one of his traits is living by example. Back when he pivoted from being an Air Force officer to a career coach in Workforce Singapore, or WSG, he had took on and mastered branding on LinkedIn to be able to better guide his clients. He is also selfless in providing value and advice. You can follow him on LinkedIn to Instagram at MikeLeeYC or MikeLiyC for valuable insights ranging from branding on LinkedIn to financial tips and tricks. Please welcome Mike Lee. Hi, Mike.
Thank you, Kit. Hello. Thank you for inviting me.
No
Excited
problem.
to be here. Yes.
That's good. Maybe you can start off with sharing your journey so far with us.
Oh, well, my journey started, if we talk about entrepreneurship, it only really started about 3 years ago in 2 years plus. Yeah, 2018. So I spent most of my career in the Air Force. Like you mentioned earlier, I was flying UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, or simply known as drones. So I was flying it for the Singapore Air Force for 8+ years. Yeah, 8+ years I was in the Air Force. I rose all the way up to be, in my flying career, I was at a peak senior instructor. So after a while, I felt like, there's something missing. I felt like whatever that I was doing was kind of like mundane, started getting mundane. And I did not find that sense of fulfillment that I was seeking. It was like, I wanted to make a bit of an impact, but, and something that is tangible. Because if I were to really find some form of impact while within the Air Force, probably, maybe, I don't know, we have to go to war or something like that. But that's not what we all want, right? Yes. So, of course, I derive satisfaction grooming my younger pilots as well. So those were the things that kept me going. So along the way, I started thinking like, okay, I gotta make a move somehow, right? Because at the end of the day, so this was what happened. If I were to go way back, I left the Air Force in 2017. But back then in 2013, I actually tendered my resignation. In 2013, I tendered my resignation. So 2013 was also the year where my contract was actually, I was not bonded anymore. And during that time, what happened was I was taking my part-time degree. I was taking a finance degree, taking a part-time degree, but I thought like, you know what, I'm just going to go out there and look for a job. Doesn't matter how low the position is, I'm willing to restart from the start. So I tendered my resignation in 2013. I still remember my last day was supposed to be in August 2013. Yeah. So the thing is, I had a 3 months notice period. I had no experience in the finance sector, which was why I was willing to go start from the bottom again. Right. So, when I was in the Air Force, I was drawing a comfortable salary for someone who doesn't have a degree yet. So I was halfway through my degree, and I tendered. So what happened was throughout that 3 months, I was just looking for jobs. At first, pretty relaxed because I thought like, wouldn't be so difficult. But as time keeps passing on, slowly I became more like, oh no, this is quite tough. This is not as simple as I thought. Yeah. So about 3 weeks before my last day, I started panicking already. I started thinking like, oh no, I can't find a job. And I've never been unemployed before. I became very, very fearful. So what's going to happen? Right? And I had a lot of financial commitments. I was not very financially savvy. I was driving back then. I didn't even think of selling my car. And I had all the different financial commitments. I was not really exactly being very prudent with my finances as well. So that's where I thought like, okay, I got to do something about it. So what I did was I swallowed my ego. I went back to my boss and asked him whether I could withdraw my resignation. So lucky thing was they accepted my withdrawal. So I was very, very lucky. But of course, the part about ego, I really got to swallow because that was not the toughest part. The toughest part was after withdrawing my resignation.
Yep.
Right?
I think
Because I go
you have
back
to
and
face your
everybody,
teammates and everything, right?
yeah, I have to start facing my colleagues who will make fun of me here and there. Of course, I know that they sometimes may not mean it, right? But it still hurts. So I do my best to block it out, and I continue to do my best. So I think in a way, I let the results do the talking. Right? And as entrepreneurs as well, a lot of times we have to let our results do the talking. So I kind of had that kind of mindset very early on to work hard no matter what others say. So when I did that, I think I'm also pretty lucky because my bosses like me and I was pretty competent. I got promoted at every earliest opportunity. Yeah. So, and then one day in 2017, I think it was early 2017, I still remember the scene when I was heading back to my mom's place, which is about 10 minutes walk away. So I head back to her place to have dinner. And I was thinking like, what are my plans, right? I'm feeling unfulfilled. I want to move on. What do I do? And then I started feeling the fear again because you had a bad experience of living. Right? 3 months notice period, nobody wants you. You know, this thing keeps playing in my head. And that stopped me from a lot of things because I didn't dare to take that step up. Yeah. So when that happened, I started fearing. It's like, oh, if I were to go out, you know, this fear is very strong. So I decided not to do anything. So on that day, when I was walking back to my mom's place, suddenly I had this thought. I started asking myself different questions. I asked myself, what if I continue staying in the Air Force and retire at age 50? Because in the Air Force, as an officer, you retire at age 50.
Yep.
Right? So I started thinking, what if I stay and retire at age 50? Suddenly, I became even more fearful. I started thinking like, oh no, I wouldn't be able to do what I really wanted to do. I wouldn't be able to feel that sense of fulfillment that I'm looking for, right? And you know, time would just fly by. 50 years old and you don't have any valuable skills. After 50 years old, what's next? So all these things started coming up, and I became even more fearful. And that spurred me. You know, after dinner, I went home. I started looking for avenues to transit out. So very quickly, I found a job within Workforce Singapore, WSG, as a career coach. And that was something that I was thinking like, wow, you know, it was something that was very impactful because I was helping Singaporeans look for jobs, people who are unemployed, right? And also some who are employed who wanted to make the transit. So started getting very excited about a job. And I was very lucky. I got recommended into the job. And that's the power of network, I would say, right? Another lesson in entrepreneurship is also the power of network, knowing the right people which can connect you. Of course, there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done, you know, being of value to people first. Yeah, so I would say that I was very lucky because back then in the Air Force, I felt like a frog in a well. I don't know people outside. I don't know people outside of my circle because a lot of things that I do are very confidential, you see.
Yep.
So when that happens, I don't really like to interact with people because people will start asking me about my work and I don't like to talk about my work for fear of saying the wrong things. And you will hardly see me on social media. I'll just be lurking, but I'll not be posting anything. I'll not be commenting on any posts, things like that. And so that was what happened. And yeah, they actually waited for me for 4 months plus.
Wow.
And I got on the job.
Maybe you can dial it back because I remember, I think seeing, or maybe we had a talk on this, is that you only started LinkedIn quite late. I think like 2013 is only when I think your wife created an account for you, but didn't really touch on it. Then in what way or what network that allow you to transit? Like what was that avenue of that network? Is it like through friends, recommendation, or is it like through any online portal or platform?
Yeah. So so I started LinkedIn, I think, after 2013, after the field move, right? Field transition. So my wife created LinkedIn for me. And I, you know, because I didn't really use it, so I didn't know how to use it as well. So I just left it. So it was like collecting dust. I didn't really log into LinkedIn. It was not one of those things that I just neglected. Yeah. So how I got in was really through old school networking, right? Through friends of friends. In this case, what happened was my wife's childhood friend works in SkillsFuture Singapore.
Okay.
And his former boss is in Workforce Singapore. So a bit of history, Workforce Singapore and SkillsFuture Singapore, they are affiliated. So they used to be called Workforce Development Agency, WDA, and then they come out because they had different focus. Yeah, so this was someone who was high position within WSG. Yeah, so I went through the recommendation. It was all based on good faith. Yeah, so traditional networking. Yeah, so that was how I made the transit.
Yeah, I think in the transit, then you were also recommending using LinkedIn, or at least in WSQ or WSG, that through how either career transitions or people who are looking for jobs is an avenue of outlook is through LinkedIn. I think that's where you pivoted and really lead by example and going deep into LinkedIn and providing value to your clients. Maybe can you share more on that as well? Like what's your thought processes in that?
Yes. So I think because I moved into something that was totally new. Of course, I did a little bit of career development related work with my wife back then to help people to, while I was still in the force, I was doing something on the side, just helping people to prepare themselves for interviews, things like that. So I think that helped me to get the job at WSG back then. But however, going into WSG is a totally different thing, right? I was meeting up with more people and people who were more professional, who had more years of experience. So naturally, I felt like I'm very, very inexperienced. And I was totally new. And I was going to help people who were holding high positions, people with 20, 30 years of work experience, while I was someone with no corporate experience. So I told myself, I'm going to be like a sponge. I'm going to absorb as much as I can, and I'm going to apply as much as I learn. So I learned from my other colleagues, right? And I learned online. I went out to meet people. So one of the few things, a few of those things that I learned is you got to go out to do networking, right? To know more people, find out what value you can add to other people, and let them see what are some of the expertise that we have. So I started doing that. I started going out to meet people. So I had no idea how to go out and network and meet people, but I just went out and do it. I went out on my own. I just experimented with it. Yeah. And that's how I got to know more people. So I went from being a frog in the well, I started to see the world. Second thing was, I hear my colleagues keep saying, you gotta make use of LinkedIn, make use of LinkedIn. So I was like, okay, I don't really know how to make use of LinkedIn. I did make use of LinkedIn during my job application process while preparing for my interview. So one of the things that I did was to research on my interviewers. So I did that, and that helped me a lot in preparing for the interviews. Beyond that, I was thinking, like, how do I really make full use of LinkedIn? Because it was like a social media. It was no longer like a job portal anymore back in 2017. And so I was thinking, like, how do I make full use of LinkedIn? So I started by going for courses, paying for it myself, and then just experimenting, just posting, adding other connections, things like that. And slowly, I start to see a bit of traction. Yeah, so that's the part of me, because I know that I wasn't good, I wasn't experienced. I had to do everything for myself so that I can tell my clients. I had to see for myself whether it worked or not. So I can tell my clients, the unemployed, the people who are unemployed, if I were to tell them how they have to go and use LinkedIn, naturally the question is, how does LinkedIn help me? How do I use it? Right? So I had to give them tips that they would be able to apply. So that was on top of my mind. Right? My whole intention is so that I can help them tangibly. Right? So this has always been a part of my life. I find it very hypocrite if I were to tell people to do something, but I don't do it. Yeah, so I have to make sure that it works on myself first. Same thing for networking. Why I was able to overcome that fear of going out to meet people, despite not meeting people for probably most of my adult life, is really going out there, having a bigger purpose in mind, right? The people that I'm doing it for. I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it so that I can impact the people that I'm serving.
Yeah, I think this really flows into your next career move as well. Or I think all the way from the start, it's like your sense of fulfillment and purpose of serving people. has really brought you to the new level of your career? I think after WSG, you went on to be a career coach. Not a career coach, but as a life coach with your mentor and your friend Eugene and his team. So how do you know like when is a good time to pivot?
So through networking, I was able to meet my business partner, and that was where our relationship started blossoming. I started to attend even more networking events. I get to know more people, and started thinking outside of the employment box, right? Because when we are in employment, sometimes you just look forward to the next paycheck, right? And you don't really think about career development as much, which is why a lot of people, what happens is that I always used to say that there is no iron rice bowl right now, right? Because people nowadays, they don't think about their own career development. They only think about when is their next paycheck coming, or when is their next promotion coming, right? And if they are unhappy, they are just thinking of how can I move out of this job. They don't project long term. They don't think about what they want to achieve by the end of their career. And they see it very segmentized, very small portion of it. But what we have to do is to really pull ourselves up and start to see. Right? And the decision, how I came to the decision to really leave employment and venture into entrepreneurship, right, is by looking at my environment. I started looking at my environment. I love the job a lot at WSG as a career coach because I was really tangibly helping people. However, when I look at my own long-term progress, I was the youngest coach back then in WSG. I was 30 years old, 30. I was the youngest back then, right? So I was looking, okay, who are the older ones in all of the career coaches? And some of them are in their 60s, and I look at who are the most senior in terms of the career coaches. They are probably they were in their 50s, right? So I was thinking to myself, from now until the 50s, right? That's 25 years. 25 years. And I was looking at career progression. Where am I going to be in 25 years, right? And in their positions. So they are very senior career coaches, right? However, I was looking and thinking like, okay, is that the max that I can go? What is the max that I can go? Right? You'll still be doing probably about the same thing. It's just that I'm managing coaches. Maybe I'm doing a little bit of, planning, progression of the career progression of the younger coaches, things like that, right? I was looking at this whole thing, and then I was thinking that, do I really need that 20 plus years so that I can reach there? And 20 years seems like a very, very long time to me. And I'm looking at the ranks, the grades, right, for promotion. That also means that if I can only get, the difference in grades, I would say it was a difference in 3 to 4 grades. And 3 to 4 grades, that means, let's say we take 20 years, right? 3 to 4 grades, let's say 4 grades. That means I will probably be promoted every 5 years. Oh. Right? If you were to divide that, every 5 years, if I do my best, I'll be promoted every 5 years. Of course, I can defy all of this and, be there at an earlier age. But I was thinking like, even if I was there at an earlier age, I cut down by, let's say, 25%, 15 years, right? It's still a long time for me to reach there. So I was thinking like, wow, I really need to rethink this whole thing. Right? It may be very fulfilling, but is that where I want to be at the end? So that's where I started. That was the point where I started thinking that I need to make a move. Because right now, I'm no longer in the same kind of mindset. Right? My mind has expanded. Right? A mind once expanded cannot return to its original form. Yeah, so when that happened, when you have experienced so much more, when you look outside and you see that, hey, there's so much more that you can achieve, you no longer want to stay in that place that you want to be, that you used to be happy in. Right? You will start to yearn for more because as humans, throughout mankind history of mankind, why we are able to progress, even things like making things more innovative, like computers getting faster and faster, is also because we are always looking for improvement. We are looking to see how we can improve our lifestyle, the things that we use, things like that, our own lives. Yeah, so that is ingrained in all of us, and that was particularly strong in me. That made me feel that, hey, I need to break out of this whole cycle. I need to do something that can bring even more sense of fulfillment to myself and to the people around me.
Or what are you most known for currently?
Yes, I think, with some pivoting, one of the drawbacks is also people may still recognize you for your expertise previously. Yeah. So of course I've made a few pivots over the last few years, right? Because the speed of change is so fast, right? Some people cannot keep up, and not everybody's on social media. And back then, when I first started, even until recently, right? I'm still very known for being a career coach, because even after I left WSG, I was still having clients who I was doing career coaching for them specifically. And when that happened, even until recently, I have people approaching me, asking me to coach them. Yeah, they are willing to pay me for coaching, and that's where I started turning them down, because there was a switch in focus. And when I left WSG, one of the other things that I was doing was helping people in their finances, empowering people with their finances. Yeah, I was helping people with their wealth protection and wealth accumulation, mainly these two, right? So when that happened, there were a lot of times where people did not know that I was doing that as well. And slowly I decided that, hey, you know what? I need to make this part known. And that is where I started building that. I started putting out content about how we can better manage our own wealth, right? And I started finding a target market, right, where I was looking through my list of clients, and I started to see that, hey, you know what? Most of my clients are actually men, and most of them are family men, and most of them don't have a lot of time for their families. And I know their wives, I know their families. We are all very close. All of my clients are very close to me, and the wives would always tell me like, oh, you know what, my husband is on overtime, so I haven't been able to reply you. Yeah, so I set up group chats with them, with their husbands and wives, so we communicate very, very openly. Yeah, so that was what happened. I started seeing that, hey, you know what, I have this advantage of knowing who my target clients are. And sometimes the challenges that they face are the same challenge that I faced, not having enough time for loved ones. I think most of us people who are working nowadays, we face this challenge. And there's always this struggle. Some of us would feel guilty if we were to, let's say, work on a weekend, or we have to sometimes break a promise to our loved ones just because there is urgent work involved.
Yeah, I think as men, we like to be able to provide for our family. So I guess that is why a lot of men are very much career focused, because that in that sense bring in the money as maybe they could be the sole breadwinner, or at least like the larger portion of it. So there is a more stability that they are able to bring to their family. I think maybe that was their mindset in that sense.
Yeah, because traditionally, if we were to go back to the start of mankind, men were always out there hunting, while the women are usually the ones taking care of the kids at home, nurturing, right? They take on a more nurturing role. And yeah, so men continue to have this instinct, which is why a lot of my clients, when I first meet them, they are like that, right? They feel that sense of responsibility. And that I also realized, came from my dad. My dad was also like that as well, because I started reflecting on my own journey since young. My dad was hardly communicated with me and my brothers, because he will wake up at 4 a.m. every morning. He has done that for the last 40 years. And he wakes up at 4 a.m. every day. He goes to work. He's a school bus driver, and he goes to work very early. Send factory workers to work, and then he sends the kids to school. So that was him for the past 40 over years. And he was a typical Asian father, don't know how to communicate with their kids. But we all know, as more recently in the last decade or so, how communication between parents and kids play such a huge part, right, in their growing up years. Yeah. So I started seeing that, hey, there is this gap here, which, you know, a lot of times, why do most fathers, they are not able to communicate with their child? Number one, of course, they don't really make the effort to learn. And a lot of times, not that they intentionally don't make the effort to learn, they just don't know how. They don't know that they have to learn. Right. Second thing is the common reason or excuse that they give is, I'm already so busy at my work, right? I'm the one bringing back the food, bringing back the money to put food on the table, right? Why don't the wife do that? Right? However, we are seeing now that back in our parents' generation, I would say this was mainly the mentality, and right now, you know, even though we have both parents working most of the time, most of the men still think this way because of the provider mentality. Yes. Yeah.
I think on top of that, I think there is maybe some kind of conflict of, say, mindset, or in terms of the way men interact or work. So usually men are like more, will need to take the alpha role, take the one in charge, being the leader, especially in their workplace. So having a softer approach might not be that positive in terms of the workforce, being the workforce. Maybe that conflicts of like being nurturing, being soft, being more understanding, more empathy, and more of like the family side might be in conflict with what men are usually exposed to, or will need to reflect, or what the world expect of him. That is why there is a bit of I think maybe in that sense a knowledge gap of like how to be able to better connect, how to be able to be show more empathy, how to be able to connect, be it with family or friends, in respective of being strong, being the breadwinner, being able to provide for the family.
Yeah, I think it's also part of societal norms, and that shapes how we think as well and how we act, right? Usually because, you know, a lot of times the things we learn is passed down through generation. The mindset that we have is like that as well. So most of the time, what happens is that we will think that, okay, the teaching of the kids, we leave it to the mom, right? And that's what happens. You know, we leave everything to the mom, and then the dad actually kind of like, once you don't take on the responsibility, you feel that it is not your responsibility.
Yeah.
However, you know, the role of a father or a man in the family actually is very important in terms of the way they communicate, because that shapes how the kids are being brought up, right? And how they behave in the future. And we cannot afford to have this continue going on, because a lot of our kids growing up will start lacking a father figure. And when that happens, then they will go out and look for a father figure.
That's right.
And that's where, you know, we go into a cycle, right? Where the father says something, the kid don't listen.
Yeah.
And he has gone out to look for a father figure.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
it may not always be a bad thing.
Yeah. It could be a bad thing as well, sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I see that as one of the challenge for most of my clients as well. So this is what I do to help them. You know, one of the main reason why they are so dedicated to work, I mean, dedication is one of their top values. More importantly, because they feel the responsibility to provide for a better life for their family.
Yeah.
And that's where they work even harder, ensuring that they don't lose their job, ensuring that they get their promotions, and ensuring that they get their higher increments so they can bring more money back home.
Yeah.
Right? So in a way, money is not the root of the problem, but they can't live without that. You know,
That's right.
They feel that obligated to do well so that they can do that, bring them extra money back home and give their families a better life. At the end of the day, their intentions are good.
Yes. Their intention is based off love. Yeah.
Yes, everything was based on love. However, you know, there's this part where they might feel guilt if they don't exactly, you know, go all out in their jobs.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Wow. I guess if that's the case, how do you personally define success in your own term?
success, I guess, success actually comes in different layers and different levels for me, right? If I were to say anything, something that I learned, especially over this year, 2020, where we had the lockdown, circuit breaker in Singapore, it's really that success starts from home. Success starts from home. Let me give you, tell a story. You may have heard of this. I put this up on social media. This happened early in circuit breaker when we were all being locked down at home. So what happened was, me and my wife, we don't have kids yet. However, so both of us were working from home. Right? I have my own study room. Right here is my study room. And my wife works in the living room. So that we don't clash when we have calls, right? So what happened was I was in my room the entire day for most days. And my wife, she is someone who likes to spend time with me. One of her top love language is quality time. For me, I sometimes I'm also unsure of my own love language. But I would think quality time is one of them. However, I was like most of my clients, right? Work so that I can bring more money home, So that was the mentality going on, and that was part of how I discovered this is what most of my clients are facing as well. And that's where I find that I can communicate with them very well because it is the same thing that we are facing. And what happened was that I was spending so much time in my room from the morning all the way to the night. And my wife, she wanted more time with me. So what she did was she scheduled to do some exercises with me at home. And we were supposed to do some exercises at home. So by the end of the day, I was so tired already. And I just told her, okay, I'll just do the exercise do the couple exercise together with you since I promised you. However, when I was doing the exercise, I was quite half-hearted. I was very tired already. Halfway, I just decided to walk off. I said that I'm very tired. I don't want to do this anymore. And that's where she started feeling like, I'm not putting effort into the relationship. I wasn't, I just gave up too easily. I was not putting effort into the relationship and she didn't feel appreciated. And that resulted in an argument. Yeah. So at first it started from she didn't want to talk to me that night, right? I thought maybe by the next morning everything will be okay. What happened was she still didn't talk to me, and in the middle of the day, the next day we started arguing. Right? She was saying that I didn't appreciate her, and then I was saying that I was working hard so that I can bring more money home. Things like that, the usual arguments that most couples have, I believe. Right? So what happened was we had a huge argument, and she was very, very angry. She took my mouse and smashed it on the table, and it actually bounced off my monitor. And the monitor was only, I think, 2 to 3 weeks old. I just bought it right before the circuit breaker, knowing that the circuit breaker was here. I was like, oh no. But then I also knew how serious this whole thing was. Yeah. Right? Then I started thinking, when I had this argument, this thing that is not resolved, what happened was that whatever that I did, right? Whatever that I did those few days when we had this argument, I couldn't fully concentrate. I couldn't fully focus because everything I was thinking at the back of my mind, while I was doing work, I was on calls, I was talking to clients. It was about the argument, like how can I make things better?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I couldn't focus. I couldn't give my all to the people that I was speaking with. I couldn't give my full attention. And that's where I started realizing that, hey, everything actually starts from home. Because if you have something not going well at home, you're likely going to be affected. It's always going to be something at the back of your mind. Yeah. Right? So that's where I started realizing that, hey, I need to change. Right? I started asking myself, what is it that I'm really working for? It is for this family, so that I can give my wife a better life as well. And eventually, when we have kids, to give the kids a better life. And that's why we are doing all this, because sometimes we are too sucked in. Our goal is right in front of us, and then we are just working towards it. But what we have to do is to pull ourselves out and tell ourselves that, hey, this is the goal that we are working towards. Don't forget why we are doing this. Right? And that's where I started changing. I started carving out extra time, for spending time with my wife. And we started getting happier. our relationships start getting better, right? So I mean, during the circuit breaker, a lot of I'm sure with a lot of couples, there are going to be a lot of arguments whatsoever, right? You probably have heard that divorce rates go up, right? It's also an opportunity for us to get closer as well. I saw it as an opportunity to get closer only after learning the lesson.
I think it's always both parties need to be able to put aside the time, and I think personally I also have this experience where I hope that it was not that serious, but we did have like our own argument. I think it's also about spending quality time as well. So people like everyone is even personally myself like give excuse. Okay, I'm actually working this, multiple things. Okay, let's maybe set aside some time. I think setting out time, scheduling to loved ones, I think is as important as scheduling time for, say, self-improvement, doing work and all this. Work in some sense never ends, but life, there is always an expiry to life as well. So no, I think not just the direct loved one, I think like with friends as well. I think that is quite key, to be able to juggle that few glass balls, like life, health, and of course career.
Yeah. So when you ask about, how do I define success? Success, the first layer of success is always home. If you can't sort out anything at home, especially for someone of doing what I do, I think I'll be a hypocrite where I tell people you can have a very happy family life, feel less guilty about work. Yeah, but if I don't sort out my own family, the things that are happening at home, then how am I going to call myself a success if I were to be successful in, let's say, my career, in impacting hundreds, thousands of lives? It is all, I feel, very not congruent, right? Incongruent. When I talk about success, all these things, having better relationship with people, but I don't have good relationship with my loved ones, or even with myself. I have to feel guilty all this time.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's really a good takeaway. Since you mentioned about your career, or even in entrepreneurship, is there any bad recommendations that you have heard of that maybe back in your days or like throughout your journey so far?
Bad recommendations.
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, there are many different thoughts about this. I think there are a few that I can share. One is one phrase that a lot of people would say, right? Be it entrepreneurship or not, right? Is this thing, is that if I can do it, so can you. And I think it is used a lot in entrepreneurship as well, especially if, let's say, you have, if you're mentoring someone, you cannot measure your success to their success using the same methods. This is what I feel, because people have different personalities, right? So one of the biggest, what you call a bad recommendation is motivating the people that you lead by saying that, hey, if I can do it, why can't you? Right? So what this actually does is actually, it is not healthy, because what happens is that you put a lot of pressure on this other person, because not everybody is motivated by comparison. There are some people who are very motivated by comparison, whereas there are some people who, once you compare them with others, they start shutting off. They'll say that, well, the other person is better, right? No point competing. So they will not even be motivated to want to work hard to beat the other person. Yeah, so we have to customize our communication to the people that we speak with, especially in entrepreneurship, because at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is hardly a one man's journey. I feel that there's a lot of, in terms of entrepreneurship, you're always working with others, be it with partners, with clients. You are never alone. Yeah.
Then how can an entrepreneur or someone who is looking to embark in such journey know more about themselves or find out a bit more about themselves, like in understanding more about themselves? to be able to better manage or better know the way forward?
Know more about themselves. They have to find somewhat of a mentor or a coach, someone who can help them reflect who they are, right? Someone who kind of metaphorically holds up a mirror and show them who they are. Because there are some parts of you you'll never be able to find, and that are what we call blind spots. Right? You may feel that you are very successful in your own terms. However, there are some parts where you definitely can improve, and that's where you need someone who is not afraid to call you up on your bullshit, right? To tell you that, hey, you are not there yet, because especially for entrepreneurs, for anybody who's successful, right? The minute they think that they are successful, that's where the minute that they think that they have arrived, that's where they start getting complacent, right? And that's where you need someone to tell you, hey, if you think that you have arrived there, right? Where is your long-term goal? Have you arrived at your long-term goal? Right? For someone, especially an entrepreneur or even anybody for that matter, right? You should never have an end goal, because to me, life is about, once you have arrived at this peak, there's always another higher peak. You know, in Chinese we say 一山还有比一山高. There is never a number one, right? We talk about the fastest runner, Usain Bolt. He may have broken the world record, right? He have broken many world records. But at the end of the day, who is his biggest competitor? Himself. So that he can break even more world records. Yeah, so that is the mentality of someone who's successful, that he's always looking to break the next record. He's always looking for his looking towards his next goal. And the only way he can improve is if someone tells him how he can better leverage his strengths, how he can reduce his weaknesses. So we all need someone like that in our lives.
Wow. Do you see that a lot with like current entrepreneurs, like the new batch of entrepreneurs, understanding that you are part of the China ASEAN New Smart City Innovation and Entrepreneurship Competition?
Well, with this set of participants, I would say that most of them are very, very open. So throughout this competition, I also learned a lot. I was never really in the startup space. However, throughout this competition, I got to know how startups think, how they behave, right? And I can say that most of them are very, very humble, and they were very, very willing to learn. What happened was that for this competition, we actually went the extra mile to allocate mentors. So we sourced out mentors through our network to mentor some of these teams. And they were very, very grateful about it. And they worked really, really closely with the mentors. And the mentors really gave selflessly. And some of them, now that the competition is over, there are some of the mentors, some of the teams actually approach the mentors to see that, hey, is there any way we can work together, right? Even ask them to invest in their startup. So it's the start of a beautiful relationship, partnership, right? So I think, this is where I see that, they may not be there yet, right? But the fact that they are willing to learn, they are willing to seek out mentors, and that's where I feel like, my job really is linking up great ideas that can impact more people with the right people who can bring them even higher. Yeah. So this competition has taught me a lot.
Wow, great. So any new entrepreneurs will need to know being humble and willing to learn, of course, on top of, say, networking is very key. That's great. Maybe we can go on to our quick fire questions. One of them, what is your favorite word?
Favorite word? Growth.
Wow. In what sense? Like, is it growth in mindset, growth in learning, growth in any specific area?
I say growth because growth is my number one value, and this is something that I recognize within myself over the last decade, I would say. Right. So I truly started my career in 2010 when I commissioned as an Air Force officer. And since then, what I have done every single year is to invest in courses to upgrade myself, self-paid, every single year. And every year I just spend more and more money. But a lot of times it's not about the money. It's about how does it help me achieve the goals that I want. And so, and how do I really apply what I've learned so that I can see tangible results and tangible growth. Yeah. So when I talk about growth, is the journey of always seeking growth. Yeah. And one of my mentors always, her favorite quote is this: "If we are not growing, we are dying."
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that before as well. Yeah. So what is your next growth move if you're open to share as well?
My next growth move. So right now I'm in the middle of a transition. So recently I made the decision to make a transit so that I can provide even more solutions for my clients. Some solutions which they have been requesting for in terms of investments. So that is where I am really excited. I found a mentor. So like I said, I'm always on the lookout for good mentors. And the decision to pivot was also because I felt like, I've reached my maximum potential where I am, and I needed to break through that. So I'm always looking to break through my ceiling, this glass ceiling that I see, right? Break through it and look for a new mentor which can bring me to greater heights. Yeah. So what happened is that I'm excited to serve my clients with more solutions. And going back into the world of investments, which I have kind of neglected in terms of the financial planning that I do. Right? So I used to be very, very into that. Now I'm going back there, and yeah, it is going to be an exciting journey for me.
It's great. That's good to hear. Maybe next one is, what are you maybe curious about right now? Like any specific topic?
Curious, I think recently I have been very curious and into things like biohacking, right? How I can increase the performance of the human mind. Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of reading up a lot on those, and then I even recently got this band. I don't know whether you know this. I just started using it yesterday, so I have not actually had the results, which can help me to focus, help me when I meditate. So it actually release some frequencies, yeah, and help me sleep better as well. So I'm really testing this out. So I'm harnessing, more power from my own brain, how I can get more done in lesser time. Yeah, so that's something that I'm very, very curious about right now, how to maximize human potential.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've heard of that product. I think it's using, I can't remember, is it alpha, beta, omega wave?
Something like that, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, maybe you can check out a book by Tim Ferriss. I think it's the 4-Hour Body. I think he did experiments that maybe might be useful for you as well in terms of biohacking.
Yeah.
Is there a comfort food that you always go to?
Comfort food.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of comfort food that I go to. I would say, okay, like if you ask me what is my favorite food, right? Singaporean food, I would say is Hokkien Mee. Yeah.
Hokkien Mee, okay.
Yeah, it's like I can eat that every day. If anything else, I think, outside of it, if I was just thinking about this morning, while on the way to office. I went to office this morning and I was thinking, like, what is one thing that I can eat for breakfast every day? I started thinking, I think I can have a croissant and coffee every day.
Wow.
For breakfast, that will be good enough for me.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I do love croissants. So I'm happy to share you a few places on where to get a good croissant as well. Maybe one more would be, if you could have dinner with any three person or three people, either dead or alive, who would it be and why?
3 people, dead or alive, who would it be? Well, 3 people is a lot.
Yeah.
I think
it could be together or separately, does not matter.
Yeah, I'll probably think it would be separately. The first person that came to mind is my father-in-law. Yeah. When I got together with my wife back then, we were still dating in we started dating in 2011. but my father-in-law passed on in 2012. Yeah, he contracted liver cancer. It was very fast. Within 3 months, he was gone. But before he left, what we did was I knew that I was going to marry my wife back then, and we even did a tea ceremony to let him live in peace. I still remember what he said to me, right? While we were alone, just the two of us. He told me to take good care of my wife. Yeah, so I think the first person that came to my mind was my father-in-law, just to reassure him that we are both living very well, and that I have fulfilled my promise to take very good care of his daughter. Yeah, so that's the first person that I will meet. I think the second person that I would like to meet is Goh Keng Swee. Yeah. Mainly because I feel that the way I work, I've worked in business partnerships before, and I realized that my strength is never in being the person fronting anything, but I'm someone who's at the back. I'm a very good support character, where I strategize and really support the main person up front, just like how Goh Keng Swee has helped supported Lee Kuan Yew, back in those days. Yeah. So I was thinking, like, how can I better myself, right? Learning lessons from Goh Keng Swee. Yeah. Yeah. So 2%. The third person, I well haven't really thought about the third person, but if I could, probably. Usually I will meet with people who are no longer around, because I think these are almost impossible. So in my mind, those people who are no longer around, um, I would say my grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather. Yeah. One thing that I remember about him was that so my maternal grandfather. Uh, my maternal grandmother actually passed away when she was very young, when my mom was less than 5 years old, I think. Yeah, so he single-handedly brought up 11 kids. Yeah, 11 kids. So yeah, and the thing is, he passed on at about 90, right? He had many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And what I really admired about him is he's hard to remember everyone. In fact, he could remember every single one's name,
Wow.
even down to the great grandchildren at 90. Yeah. So I mean, this is something that stuck with me for a long time. Yeah. So I always look forward to meeting him back when he was still around. The strength that he had, single-handedly raising 11 children, not easy. They were not. I mean, my parents, my mom was not from a well-to-do family, so they had to rely on the older siblings. So my mom was one of the younger siblings. Yeah, and the heart that my grandfather has, remembering every single one down to the great grandchildren.
Wow. Very, very touching. Did he impacted you on top of that as well? Like on your personal conversation with him? In your personal conversation with him, in that sense?
I don't remember many conversations with him. However, it is mainly the actions, and yeah, I still remember there was once I met him on the bus back then when I was still schooling. Yeah, I met him on the bus, right? And after greeting him, I just sat down next to him. Yeah, we were both just silent, but it was just comforting to be next to him. Yeah, so a lot of times it is not about the conversations, but it's the feeling of being around the people that you love. Yeah. So I feel that a lot of times there are a lot of things that are communicated even when things are not said. Yeah.
Wow. Maybe for parting section for the remaining of this call is there any specific advice that you can give to, say, anyone, the listeners, or maybe to your clients, like be it family relationship or career, be it they wanting to better enhance their career or transition into entrepreneur? Is there any specific advice that you can give to either man or woman to be a better person in that sense, to be able to take care of both career, be it entrepreneur or corporate, as well as family?
The thing that always stands out when I speak with people is, and something that I always advise people is, treasure the ones around you. Same thing, success starts from home. There are certain things that time will fly by very quickly. Sometimes I think about me, and then I feel afraid. Right, I'm 32 years old this year, and then I'm thinking like, wow, time just flies so quickly. I'm already 32 years old, right? And I mean, just thinking about it is like, I have not spent enough time with my loved ones. Yeah, and some of these things cannot be, you can't turn time back. Right? And the best we can do is to treasure the time. Success really starts from home. At the end of the day, one very important question that we should always ask ourselves is, what are we working for? Right? To ground yourself always is, what are we working for? Right? Whenever you feel defeated, what are you working for? Yeah.
So basically,
So
what's your why that's driving you, right?
yes. Yeah. So when that happens, because I feel that when you ask what's your why, it becomes a very big topic, right? Uh, a lot of times, when back then when I first started coaching, I like to tell people, you got to find out what's your why. But most people cannot find their why by themselves. Right? And you were to ask directly, ask them, why do you do what you do? They can't answer you. So I usually go with a much simpler question. Right? What is it that you are working for? Who are you doing this for? Yeah. So it gives them a very basic sense of purpose. Right? Hey, I'm doing this, be it for yourself, for your family. Yeah. What are you working so hard for? Because there's a part of us, no matter how demotivated we are, how lazy we can be at times, we can still ask ourselves these questions, because there's always a part of us that is striving for something. And that striving, that working hard for something, we got to ask ourselves, what are we doing it for? Because a lot of times we are just too sucked into what we are actually doing, very tactically, that we don't see what we are doing on a more
Long term.
strategic
Makes
long-term
sense.
view. Yeah.
Wow. If anyone in the audience would like to work with you or reach out to you or to engage you in your services, like how can they find you, or how can they reach out to you?
Yep. So I am most active on LinkedIn. So you can look out for me, Mike Lee, Lee with Li. I think I'm probably, I'm the most popular Mike Lee on LinkedIn. Yeah. So you can message me there. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I don't post as often, but I'm on LinkedIn every day. Right? Other than that, Facebook and Instagram works as well.
All right. I'll leave the links in either the show notes or the link below. Thanks, Mike, for your time today. It's been very, I would say, productive, as well as very, very emotional in terms of the nuggets that you have given and provided. I think with those, even personally, I would reflect on how I spend time and how I should cater more time to loved one as well. Been great always talking to you. Look forward to our next meeting and meetup, especially now during COVID as well.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah, thank you for having me, Gunkit. Yeah, it's been a
no problem.
joy. Yeah, I think you also have a story that many people needs to hear. I think somebody needs to take the time to interview you as well, so that you can give your perspective as well. Because I mean, how we got acquainted was also because I wanted to hear your story as well.
I think how we acquainted, I think is I reached out to you via LinkedIn, then we I think we clicked like after taking it off LinkedIn and meeting face to face. I think there are a lot of like goals. I wouldn't say just goals. I think in terms of perspective or in terms of how we see things are very much in line. I think that's why we click, and great to always talk to you, work with you as well. Yeah, hopefully to get you onto the next, maybe next video next time as well, or next recording.
Hey, thank you for listening to my interview with Mike. Here are my takeaways. 1. Start by asking different questions and consider the path which will leave behind the least amount of regrets. 2. Success starts from home. By having a firm base, you would generally tend to have better peace of mind, building and expanding outwards into other aspects of life. 3. Ask what questions instead of why questions. In a book by Tasha Eurich titled Insights, she explains that why questions draw us to our limitations, while what questions helps us see our potential. Do let me know your takeaways from this hot pot mix of insights. Cheers!